It is kind of funny because I don't speak French, but I'm very slowly learning. I've taken some time off in the last year or so, but so I usually get a whole set of banter. I'll get through a set where I'm speaking a lot of French to the audience, but as soon as I get off stage, they start talking to me. I'm like, oh no, I don't know French. I just knew how to say those things. That was it.
I'm from the other side of Canada.
Yeah, I'm essentially a Texan. Yeah.
Welcome to the third and final.
In 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year!
Okay, that was kind of cute.
Welcome back to Season 3.
We're back.
We're back. For some
thank-
serious business.
Oh, are we?
Yes.
What's the business?
Speaking to country artists in Canada.
Serious business. Very
Yeah.
serious business. Thank you so much for coming back a third time around. If this is your first time, welcome. If you joined us midway through season 2, go back and start at the very beginning and get your ass caught up.
I thought you were going to say, if this is your second time, get out of here.
No. All are welcome, but you have to start from the beginning. We are so excited to be at season 3 already. It feels like yesterday I was like, Logan, can we start a podcast? And you were like, no.
Before we go on, I just want to give a shout out to a guy that we met at an event just before the holidays. His name's Tim, listener of the podcast. That was really cool. So, hey Tim, thanks for listening.
Okay, who are we kicking off season 3 with?
We're kicking it off. If the episode art didn't, when you clicked play, if that didn't tip you off, we're talking with Dan Davidson.
Dan is a platinum-selling independent artist. That's right, you heard me, platinum-selling independent. It's hard to find many folks with that on their resume, so huge for him with his single Found. We talked about his rock days with the band Tupelo Honey and where he really learned what it's like to work in the music business. We talked a lot about being independent, doing everything yourself, and really understanding all sides of the business through that.
We also talked about the random fandom that country music has in France,
along with the awesome support he gets in Australia.
So here we are with our very first conversation in season 3 with Dan Davidson.
Happy New Year! Welcome to season 3 of On The Porch. We are kicking it with Dan Davidson today. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I'm really pumped up to kick off season 3 with you guys.
Season 3!
Here we are.
We have so much we want to go through with you today. Not to make you be the wise teacher, but you did say you just celebrated your 40th birthday, and it's on the internet your age, so it's not like we're telling things we don't know.
Yeah, I know. Damn, Wikipedia is always just like pulling back the veil on how I used to be cool. But...
Yeah, that's okay. We're gonna talk about that. How you like when you used to be cool. Don't worry.
Yeah. Oh, there was a time? Okay, I'm glad that you think there was a time because that's gonna make me feel better.
Season 3 is coming in hot, people.
Yeah. Filled with drama, ups and downs. Friends become enemies.
Oh, that felt like a trailer for a reality show. No, but seriously, we're gonna chat about being independent and slamming that platinum record, and we'll talk about your album that you released in 2023. Let's. Why don't we start off by recapping 2023? How was your year? Are you glad it's in the rear view?
You know what? I liked this year. It was good. Like it's always so funny how the sands shift in the music industry. You know, like you can never really count on any constants. And one of those things is, the coming and going of radio play, or which artists are hot and who's getting the 10 minutes right now. And so it's always interesting to me because like I feel like I'm always kind of here and I'm always doing my thing. And so in a year where I didn't have the biggest radio year of my life, I was able to expand, and I played in the UK twice, and I played in Australia twice, and I really opened up like a whole other side of my game in Australia this year, which was really, really exciting. I had, a top 10 and a bunch of top 40s down there, and made a lot of friends, collaborated with some of the bigger artists, and now it's weird, being in conversation with some Australian record labels that want to help in that market. And so yeah, it's becoming a thing now. I feel like if I can pull this off, and I can tour in Canada in the summer and the spring, and I can go to Australia in Canadian
beautiful.
winter, I've like hacked the system here. So that was one thing that happened this year that I was just really excited about. And obviously, we're going to talk about the record coming out. That was a huge milestone for me too. And I think 2023 overall, I just really I firmed up a new way of thinking about my music career that I'm really excited about. From now on, for me, it's like no matter what's happening out there, there's a lot of metrics that sound good and there's a lot of boxes to check. But at the end of the day, it's about making fans and putting butts in seats. And I'm kind of going back to this old school mentality where it's like I just want to go direct to fans. I don't care what it really looks like as long as personality's shining through and people are connecting.
I've heard that from a few artists in the last couple of weeks, actually. Just like, at least specifically since the before times with the pandemic. Now that we're out and the world is open again, artists are really like craving that, getting back in front of their fans and going kind of the old school way, even like pre pandemic as well.
Yeah, well, I think it's like the only it's like it's the way to leave the deepest mark on a fan, I think, is to be there and to talk to them in real life. You know what I mean? Like it's really easy to take a picture or do a little video and frame it like a little humble brag and throw it up on the internet, but it doesn't really change people's minds about you. I think like what changes people's minds about you is you're in their market and you're playing songs and convincing them that they're a fan. And it's easier said than done. But in the old days, like bands like Rush, they would just like tour and tour and tour until one day they looked up and they were playing stadiums, and that's kind of, I think that's the move.
Now, if you could play a stadium in Australia,
yeah, I know, it's
especially in our winter months.
Oh my God, it's the dream, and it's been so fun down there because it's like Canada, but it's just like. I don't know. I thought Canadians were the biggest hillbillies I knew, but you go down
there's a lot of bogans down there.
Oh man, there's a lot of neckbeards, and
yeah.
But they're all party people. Like they're all like what I remember the rock and roll fans being like in my previous life in the music career in Canada. It's like they're just hungry to connect and smile and put a drink in the air, and I've been having a lot of fun with the Australians.
There's a lot of Canadians that have found success in Australia. What is it? Maybe you don't even know. What is it about the Canadian market and the Australian market and fans that are so similar, or something that resonates so well with fans in Australia?
Well, I think like I was trying to figure that out myself, and I was like, am I just like a novelty? Is that why they like me? But I think it's like, we have this Canadian music has its own personality, but we're in such close proximity to places like Nashville that I think that we have that sheen that comes from that musical hub, and so that's cool, and it seems big and shiny, I think, to Australians, and they have a great scene of their own, and they have like their own kind of personality when it comes to their songwriting and their production style and things like that. But so I think that helps, but also Canadians that are releasing music in Australia, they have to be prepared to spend the money and go to Australia. You can't just release songs on the radio and just hope it works. Like you have to, like they want to know that you're invested in their country. And so I kind of put my money where my mouth is. And I think that that's what stops a lot of Canadians from going down, is it's like offensively expensive to get there.
And such a long flight.
Yeah. And, I did it twice this year. And
oof.
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. But, also what's one thing that's benefiting me is that they don't have like a CanCon type of situation in Australia. Like in Canada, Canadian content is very well protected, and you have to, at radio stations, and everybody has to play 40% Canadian content. But in Australia, Canadians, they like to add their own artists, of course, but they don't hold the door shut for international artists. And so I've been given a shot, and I just gotta keep going now that there's momentum there.
Cool.
That's so interesting. This was your first time in Australia and actually touring, but I feel like you did a song with somebody, and now I'm forgetting her name, but you did a duet with somebody. Wasn't she not Australian?
Yeah. So after I had my first song that came out down there, it's called Roll With It. I did it with the Road Hammers.
Yep.
and that was the first top 10. And then from there I was like, okay, let me weasel my way into the scene a little bit. And I was writing and producing for this girl Haley Jensen, who's an Australian singer.
Right.
So I got her to feature on a song, and a couple singles down the road, I became friends with this guy Travis Collins, who's kind of like, he's like the Brett Kissel of Australia. And so we did a song together, and it was just like a lot of fun. We ended up doing a little mini tour and became good buddies. So now it's like I feel like I have some friends down there, and there's being down there and being at the festivals and seeing all these artists, and they're so eager to hang out, and there's not a lot of ego, and they're all just lovely people. So yeah, it's like there's familiar faces now, and that's a good way to be part of the community, is when you start having friends.
Definitely. How does a small town guy, because you're living in St. Albert, right?
Mm-hmm.
Travel and get to Australia. Did you ever picture your life just in front of you like this?
Never, especially because I grew up as a rock kid, right? So
Yeah.
I never in a million years thought I would be a country singer. But the funny thing is, I just didn't realize that how much of where I'm from impacts my musical sensibilities. Like growing up,
Yeah.
my parents are both from Manitoba, so we'd always drive in the summer 10 hours to the lake, and it was cassettes in those days. So there's only so many cassettes my dad had in the car, the minivan, and it was like Blue Rodeo and Lyle Lovett and the Eagles and Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson, and so it's like it kind of creeps in, and all those years writing rock and roll music and really going through that young kind of phase where things are angry and edgy and stuff like that. I just kind of kept one door of my creative self locked, and then when I got into country, it was just unlock that door and see what happens. And now, honestly, I don't even feel like I'm doing anything different than I was doing in my rock career, except now there's banjos and dobros and fiddles and stuff on the songs.
Can we take a little bit of a walk down memory lane back into the Tupelo Honey days?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that was a huge part of my life.
Yeah, and obviously hugely influential. Did you grow up listening to music? You grew up listening to music. We just said that. But did you grow up like wanting to be a musician?
I didn't
and
think,
like knowing that would be your path?
I definitely didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't really think that I was, trekking down some kind of a path to being a musician. But when I look back on it, it's like it's kind of all I ever did. Like I was playing in terrible little bands from the time I was 13 and taking guitar lessons, and my dad played piano and sang and played guitar, and so I was trying to pick up everything that he knew how to play. And yeah, and then after high school, like I had a high school teacher that launched a guitar program, and he went to Grant MacEwan Music College here in Edmonton, which is like the Humber College or whatever of the West.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of just planted a seed for me, like, okay, well, I don't know what I want to do after high school. Maybe I'll just go do that until I figure it out. And I got in last minute, and it's a jazz school, and it's for really hardcore music nerds, and I wasn't a hardcore music nerd, but I made a lot of really good friends that were amazing players, and I still play with some of them today. And I learned when I was in that jazz school, I learned what I didn't want out of music and what I did want out of music. And what I didn't want was to be playing this style of music that didn't make me happy. But what I did want is I wanted to collaborate, and I wanted to play with people and learn from people and figure out my own personality. And then when I got on the road, like we started the rock band as soon as I was done music school. And as soon as we got on the road, that was the best education I ever had. I'm playing 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week with these guys that are way better than me. So I'm learning so much. And the big thing that was so cool, and is such like a rock and roll university 101 type class, was we were coming up right in the time when the music industry was absolutely diabolically terrible. Like we were getting lucky breaks as an indie band, and we found ourselves very quickly opening for bands like Bon Jovi and playing stadiums and stuff. And
no big deal.
Yeah, it was bonkers. I'm like 22 years old, and we're like hanging out, and like Richie Sambora got to play on his talk box. And it's so weird, but it was just the craziest situation. But very quickly we had a lot of interest from record labels in America, and like Atlantic, New York would be flying out to see us in Edmonton. Like I don't even think they knew that there was an Edmonton, but they would fly out to see us. And we talked to our manager the next day, and we'd be like, "What did they say? What did they think?" And every time it was the same story. Everybody in the label got fired. It's like all these labels were just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because of the introduction of like Spotify and Napster and all these things at the time, right? So yeah, like I was just kind of like made a little promise to myself, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to wait around for anyone anymore. Like I have to figure this out." So figured out how to operate a band on a shoestring budget and try and compete with all the major label acts. And that honestly was the thing that set me up most to be able to still be doing this now, all these years later.
What was the one thing you think that did set you apart?
As like in the rock days or just now today?
Well, you said like you made that promise to yourself that you would, keep doing things that were putting you ahead. Is there one thing in particular that you think got you there?
It wasn't really putting myself ahead, but it's more just learning the industry inside and out. Because I think a lot of artists just they find themselves along for the ride. They have a manager that's doing all this stuff. They got people fundraising, people organizing their tours. Somebody's telling them how to upload their music properly or dealing with distribution. And so I've done all these jobs now. Like I've run a small label. I've got a co-publishing deal. I've organized tours. I've done design work. I've done all the logistics, and it's a lot of work. And honestly, some days the thing that sucks about being an indie artist is you feel like me anyway. I feel like I'm 80% marketing guy and manager and 20% artist. So that's one of the bummers about being indie. But I guess maybe I'm just like super type A and I have to control everything all the time.
But I mean, it also gives you an insight to know that if you do bring someone in onto your team, whether they're working for you or not.
Yeah, and it's good. It's like I'll have a little bit of a radar on like, is this person doing effective work for me, kind of a thing. And like I love collaboration, and I've had a couple people jump on. Like I now have a good team around me. I have a booking agent in Australia, Canada, and France, and like I worked with a couple of different
France.
Producers. Yeah. I'll tell you a story.
What?
And yeah, so that's like and a publisher has been a big part of my life, and I got a good promo team around me. So like there are people that are doing some heavy lifting for me, but there's still a lot of management functions that I gotta take care of. It's part of the gig. Okay, you want to know about the France thing?
Yeah, France.
Yeah, please. I haven't stopped thinking about it.
So France became this bizarre little market for me. A little while ago, I made friends with this French guy who comes over to the CCMAs every year, Franck, and he loves Canadian music. He lives and dies for Canadian music, and he's a huge country fan. And so he brought me over to play a festival that he was involved with. He's a promoter there, and he had a long talk with me before I went because he's like, Dan, in France it's very different than it is in. I won't do his accent, but he was telling me that like people in France, they only go to country music shows because there's line dancing. And when I got to meet these people, it's like they like country because they like line dancing, not the other way around.
This is wild.
Yeah, so like my first show, like, and what they do, all these French fans and basically a lot of mainland European fans, is they'll teach a class. Like there'll be this massive 1,000-person kind of a class, and they teach all these songs all day long, and then they go away for dinner or whatever, and then we come back to the show, and then they all know the dance, and there's like 1,000 people, just like this military cattle movement thing, and it's the craziest thing. And it's every show. It's almost like punk rock. The fans are so underground, but they're so passionate.
That is so fun.
What does that look like from the stage watching? I guess you just described that, but is that an interesting crowd to interact with when they're very focused on the dance moves?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because it's like, it gives you an indication of which songs work for that market pretty quickly, because the ones that they're not dancing on don't play those in your next set because it's
They
that's
didn't
what
like
they
it.
came for.
I guess, you know what? That actually kind
That's
of
so
explains our website gets a bit of traffic from France.
Hmm.
And
They're
I,
looking for
al-
line dancing. They're looking
and
for
I
line
always
dancing.
just assumed it was like spam traffic or like someone accidentally arrived to the Front Porch.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess that maybe makes sense now.
Yeah, and
Mystery
honestly,
solved.
the French country fans are fantastic, and this agent of mine, Franck, he's become a good friend, and we've worked together quite a lot over the years, and it's awesome. Like it's been such a life experience to work with him. And even though I'm not getting rich over there, but I'm making some fans, and they know, the French fans, they love Canadian music, and they know me. They know like me and Dean Brody and like Terry Clark, and like, oh, this is good company
Kinda
to
cool.
keep over
The
here.
Canadian trifecta.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to go back. I'm supposed to go back this summer sometime. I just haven't booked it quite yet.
That's
I love that.
So fun.
Yeah, and last time I went, I made it a big trip with the family. So I brought my wife and my two little girls, and we hung out in France for like 2.5 weeks, just hanging
Smart.
out. And
So fun.
yeah, once in a while, a good tourcation is a perk of the job.
You never know where your career is going to take you around the world. That's so fun.
Yeah, I never thought that I'd be ever touring internationally after the rock days were done. Like I was like, oh man, there goes my hopes and dreams of touring in Australia. But it's
Just kidding.
country music. I've been to like eight or nine countries now. Weird.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Obviously, those are the two. Australia and France are pretty monumental and fun and influential. But what are your like other favorites?
Well, we did like before all the crazy Huawei stuff happened in China. We went to China and we played a show in Beijing, and it was like a government show for expat Canadians over there, and
Oh, that makes more sense.
it was hilarious though because like nobody had seen a fiddle, like a violin played like a fiddle before, and they had like all this the sound crew guys just had like a lot of questions.
I bet.
But that was an epic trip. Like, oh my god, we climbed the Great Wall. We like everybody got sick. We saw so much cool stuff and just got into so many strange situations in Beijing. But we went, yeah. So China was cool. Italy, I've been to Hungary, France, UK, Australia, obviously America, Dominican. I've been to a bunch of weird places.
Hungary also feels like a bit of an outlier.
Yeah, and that was another one. We just found like a core line dance group, and we just went there because
I need to do some Googling as soon as we're finished
Literally,
here.
yeah.
I'll send you some links because there's
Please.
these people like live and die by these clubs that they're in too. They just like it's their families. These line dancers. But the Hungary thing was funny because we were in France and we found all these line dancers. It was just like when my mind was blowing from all this. I was like, these people exist. And so I decided to go visit all of them while I was there to shoot this video. It was called "These Are My People," and we landed in Hungary and we met our contact, this guy Norbert, and Norbert took us out to meet all the line dancers, and it was just like like this big old sort of, it seemed like a cabin, but it was like, a rec center out in the woods. And he's like, this guy named Victor will come pick you up, and this like Eastern European dude that didn't smile or make eye contact just picked us up, and we very quietly drove into the woods. And I was like, oh, this is how it ends for me.
This is where I die.
Victor had the Canadians killed. Yeah.
While line dancing.
But we got there and they're all friendly and lovely, and it was another page in the book, I guess.
That is so wild. So wild.
It is funny how music, like, I mean, not funny, it's really cool how music kind of transcends language and all that. And particularly I find it interesting with country when it's like very much rooted how we think in these stories that are like the North American experience. But even in Japan, there's a pretty healthy country scene. Like I was traveling through Asia a million years ago, and I was walking down the street in Japan, didn't know anyone, any language or anything. And my friend and I just heard country music coming from a bar. We walk in and there's like a live show.
Right.
Of someone singing country music, not like Japanese country music. Like it was
so weird,
wild.
It's like, I think for a lot of those places, it is a bit of a novelty, it's like, and that's something they don't know about, is like our kind of frontier kind of culture, what our country and what America is kind of based on, and how it only happened 200 years ago. It's not that long ago that there was, there was no Canada. So It's I think it's cool, and it's like a little bit romantic, I think, to a lot of these people. In the UK, we played in the UK in March last year, and it was this big festival called C2C, and they have a couple massive acts on
Yep.
the inside of the O2, and we were on kind of one of the smaller stages on the outside of the O2. But we took the tube to the show, and like when you're on the tube, at first it's like, okay, you're in London, everybody looks like normal Londoners. And then every stop you get closer, somebody will get on with a cowboy hat or like a little fringy vest that they bought on Amazon. And then there's somebody with a belt buckle and boots. And it's like every tube stop, it just started to look more like Calgary.
Calgary with an accent.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so funny. I love that. Okay, can we talk about, you've been independent your whole life, your whole career, and you celebrated a platinum record last year?
Yeah.
Right? That's pretty fucking huge.
It was, I don't think I've heard of any other like true indies that have gotten a platinum.
I looked it up. I couldn't find anybody in country, especially anyways. Like in Canadian country, I could not find a platinum selling artist, and that's you, man.
Yeah, it's honestly, that's like the one thing that's like, top of the resume for me. It's something I also never expected I would ever see, especially knowing that my path was probably more of an indie path. But it was just so fan perpetuating. When that song came out, it became a fun wedding song, and it wasn't sappy. It was just silly, get drunk and fall in love kind of stuff. And I seem to, I don't know, I think me doing get drunk and fall in love songs seems to work for people out there. So yeah, I guess you write what you know, and that one just kind of fell from the sky and landed in our laps. And honestly, it just changed my life. It was so crazy. It was the number one selling independent song in Canada for a while, and it only peaked at number 16 on the radio. But I think,
how does that even happen?
If I had more politics in my corner, I think that would have been a number one. But
you know what? I know. Yeah, you're right.
But it's cool. I mean, it's given me the chance to have a career, and now, no matter what song I put out, if something doesn't really crush out there, I always have found that's just this little engine that always runs, and it'll
be the gift that keeps on giving forever.
Yeah, like that song still streams like 90,000 streams a month or something stupid, and it's like 7 years later. So,
yeah,
I'll take it. It's definitely a blessing for me, that's for sure.
Yeah, I was looking through today just before we got on here, and I was like, there's Barn Burner, there's a few songs where they were core on the radio in those years. And there's just like this period of time where independent music on the radio was way more frequent, and it didn't feel like such a battle, I think, because we've talked to Ali as well, and she had music on the radio all the time, and you had music on the radio all the time, and now it's just such a different ball game, right?
Yeah, well, I was really lucky because when I started releasing music in country, I still kind of snuck in while the door was still open. But now, things have changed in the radio business, and it is a business. Their business is to sell advertising, not to break artists, right? So the conglomerates started programming for more stations. So instead of having all these people across Canada that pick what's best for their station, now there's groups of people that program together. Yeah, so it's a lot trickier to get them all at the same time, and that's how you get a top 20 or whatever, right? Is you have to have them all firing at once. Yeah, so it's not like a complaint of mine. It's just kind of the nature of the game, and it always seems like the artists that stick around are the ones that just find solutions to these problems and find workarounds. So I might not ever get another top 10, but it's not stopping me from having a career.
No
Nor
way.
should it, really.
Yeah.
What a healthy way to think about it. You've also, this is not an age joke, I swear, but you've also been in the industry for enough years to understand that piece of it too, that it's like radio, nobody has said out loud like radio is not here to break artists, and that's just that's a thing. You're right. That's not what they're doing.
Yeah, so I try to not be bitter about it, because I there's a part of me that would love to be bitter about it, because I was
you could be. If you wanted to, you just could be, right?
I was getting it, and then I wasn't, and I think that's the same story for a lot of artists. I think there's about 15 artists in Canada that kind of regularly get those spots. And if that's just me, like if that's how it is, then I still find ways to make fans and then to grow and to get my music out there. So, but yeah, that's kind of the mentality I've started to take. Is like you can't ever feel sorry for yourself in this business, because it's just you get left behind. And it's the same thing with TikTok. Like I don't love TikTok. I feel like an old man yelling into the wind a lot of the time. But and it's just like what what the younger artists can do and get away with. Like I just don't. I don't want to look like a loser. I want to look cool, and so if I do it, I can't pull it off in the same way as a lot of these artists can. So I have to figure out what works for me. And as much as I don't like how the mystique of an artist is gone, and like, did I just write the song of the summer? And how like stupid I think that is. It doesn't matter because that's what's happening in the world, and that's the thing that I have to deal with. So
that's fair.
I hear you.
That's fair.
I love scrolling through TikTok, but
oh yeah, I love using it. Like I love watching. Like for me, it's all about comedy though, right? Like I don't really. The odd time I'll scroll past like a crazy metal band and like, whoa, that's cool. But for a lot of it, it's just comedy. I think that's what I enjoy most about it. And I think that's like the internet in general. I wish that was all it was used for. It's just like sending stupid jokes to your friends and keeping in touch with your cousins. That's it.
Wouldn't life be so much better if that were the case?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of still putting out music, no matter what the industry is telling, you released your album, 1980 something, in the summer, the summer or maybe the early fall?
Yeah, this fall. Yeah, it came out in October.
I just remember He Met a Girl, and that was just immediately in my head, like, that was the song of the summer. I was like, nice. The song is
well, as long as you're saying it and not me. That's yeah. Yeah, no, I was really excited about this record. It was interesting. Like I haven't done music that's really sounded like this, and I think I was kind of inspired by. I was thinking about like what are the songs that don't go away, the songs that are just like bigger than genre and bigger than decades, and I kept landing on guys like Bruce Springsteen and Bryan Adams and Don Henley, and it's like they could release those songs in lots of different formats, and it would still be a great song that we would never forget. And so I was kind of shooting for that. And the more that I was fumbling my way through making demos of these songs I'd written, I was like just tinkering about throwing in some old sounds, like some sounds that were from the 80s and the early 90s. Because I kept thinking like a lot of these Bryan Adams, Don Henley, like Simple Minds, these kinds of songs, there's something that sound like those just great feeling like teen college movies of that era. And so I was like putting in synths and putting in little drum machines and working that into a country production. And it kind of just, it did something to me. Like it got me excited in a new way that I hadn't really done before in production. So I just chased that and came up with these kind of bright, sort of nostalgic, summery sounding tunes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's just very nostalgia. It's like this perfect combination of a new song, but just like I think about like, this is dumb, but I think about driving down the highway with my friend. We're doing 140 in a 100 when we shouldn't be. Like, it's so sunny out. It's 9:00. Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be home, but we're so far out of the city, and that's what we're like. It's just so fun.
That's the vibe, right? It's just like when you don't realize how much freedom you have when you're 17 and a half years old. You know what I mean?
Literally.
And that's literally like you can't explain that feeling, but and it was funny because I was writing a lot of these songs with Tim Hicks and Jason Blaine, and those are two of my favorite guys to write with, and we were kind of describing to each other like that sort of young, dumb, and free kind of feeling. And we all kind of had these examples that we thought were so personal, like so something that no one else has felt. And we realized that we all had the exact same things. And it was like, oh, so this is like it's like an anthem to that feeling, because it's like if us three have it, then it's a thing that exists out there, and somebody needs to remind us how that feels.
100%. Do you have any upcoming singles in 2024 from the album, or will you be kind of moving on to new music?
Yeah. I think, I wanted to release the album first because it's just like, well, I released a couple singles, but it's like, I used to be the guy that would just write a song, produce it, put it out until I was like, oh, I got 6 songs, better put it on an album. But this time I wanted to be really intentional. I wanted all the songs to sound like they belonged together and brand the whole thing. So like all the cover art and everything is very like Wish.com, Corey Hart. So
there's the title of the episode.
Yeah.
Wish.com, Corey Hart.
So that's the vibe I was chasing. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I think it like comes across like a thing, So now I'm moving on to another single in the new year here, and I'm lining it up because I'm gonna do a collaboration, and so I'm going to do a new version of one of the songs. So I can't really say much yet because I haven't really stamped it down. And if it changes, I don't want to look like an idiot when this episode comes out. But yeah, so I'm working on a collab version of one of the tunes for a next release, probably in January, end of January kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. How's 2024 looking other than cold for 3 months? Cold and snowy.
Well, first off, like we're having the best winter of all time in Alberta here. There's like no snow and it's like +6 every day. It's so bizarre.
Same here. It's like it's been pouring rain here.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. Something's up. But yeah, so honestly 2024 is looking up. You know, I get January essentially to prepare for the next round of, you know, content and videos and all that stuff, and then February we're gonna be starting to release stuff. March I'm I'm launching this concert series I'm really excited about with Clayton Bellamy, my good buddy Clay. We're partnering on this event called Heartstrings and Honky Tonks, and so we have CFCW is kind of like our other partner, and it's the local kind of country station here in Edmonton that a lot of people know. It's the oldest station in town, and they wanted, like, well, it was my idea we were going to do sort of an Opry meets the Bluebird type songwriters round, but we're going to broadcast it live on CFCW with live ad reads, and it'll be Clayton and I hosting it with Jackie Ray from CFCW doing all the ad reads and moving the program forward, and then we're going to have a lot of like Alberta songwriters that have had hits and some up and comers and kind of host a round, and so that's 4 theaters in Alberta, and we're going to be running that through March, April, May.
That's so fun, and then
you should bring that across the country.
Yeah, that's the plan. We want to get these 4 done and make sure we know what we're doing, and I would love to bring it out to Ontario because there's so many places to play out there. But yeah, so that's kind of the next big thing that I'm working on, and then I'm touring in Australia in April. And beyond that, it's like May. I was trying to put together maybe a run of shows in Ontario before the festival season kicks off, and then we're back at it. We're back to CCMA time in September. So it all goes super quick. But
when you say it like that, it sounds like everything is right around the corner, because it is.
I know. Yeah, but CCMAs are in Edmonton this year, so I'm excited. Hometown.
Yeah.
We'll see you there.
Yeah, hopefully I get some sort of nod or something so I won't have to hide and be sad. My annual CCMA sadness where
that's a real thing.
Oh man, it's tough, and it's another one of those things where it's like I get it. I know, it's how things work, but it's like, it's always the why not me moments that feel bad for myself for 6 seconds and then I'm back to work. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably healthy too. A small dose of that's probably healthy.
Yeah, and it's I've been included in the conversation quite often, so I'm just I'm happy that I've had that in my career. It's had, I think, 7 or 8 nominations over the years, and it's CCMA is the best part about it is, to me, is never the events. The songwriter stuff is fun, but it's always the hotel lobby where you hang out, you see all your friends, and a lot of people that we're all very close, but we never get more than half an hour to hang out at shows when we're playing with Jade or with Tim Hicks or any of these guys. It's just like, get 6 seconds to catch up, and then they're going to sound check and you're going to food, and so yeah, but I am looking forward to it because we usually have to travel for CCMAs, and to have it right in my backyard, I can't wait to just be annoying and be everywhere all the time.
No, you'll be the one we all ask for Rex. Where do we need to go?
Yeah.
What should we do while we're here? All that good stuff.
I hope so. I had such a good time in Hamilton last year. It was I just kind of wanted to just kind of soak it in. So I took the time to not go to every event and to just sit and try and have some more visits like that and do some networking. And it was great. Like, I met a lot of great people from Australia that came out, and the UK, and just kind of strengthening a lot of ties. And I think that's the whole point of that week. And so, yeah, I mean, like I was telling the guys from CCMA, well, the ladies from CCMA, I was saying, like, hey, I really want to be useful to you guys. So if you ever need me to be a local dude, I'm here for you.
I'm sure they will appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a great week, and despite how artists' tiny egos get fragile during those times, it's got a huge value in our community for sure.
I feel like we have a part 2. We were just getting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're just getting to the good stuff.
I'm around anytime. Anytime you guys need me.
Before we do go though, you've been an independent artist, like we said, for your career. For other independent artists out there who are listening, what is, the ones who are just getting started, what is the one thing that you would, say to them, to keep going and to not want to give up?
Yeah, well, that's always tough. I've been asked that a couple times, and I feel like the thing that's unlocked a lot of opportunities for me over the years is just being willing to collaborate and find people you trust. And that's not easy to do, but you have to try to know. And then the other thing I always think about is something my dad said to me a long time ago when I was feeling discouraged, because in music we're always feeling discouraged. And my dad's so great with these one-liners. He's just like Yoda or something, but he said, "Be great and don't go away." And I was like, okay, like I can be pretty good and not go away, so let's go with that. So yeah, that's it. I'm just relentless. I think that's like when you're doing this for a living, you kind of have to love it, and you kind of have to understand that the road is longer than the 10 feet in front of you. So you can't stop.
Well, thanks, Dan, so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us for our season 3 premiere.
Oh, anytime, guys. Yeah, if you ever want to go for a part 2, you know where to find me.
Sounds like we'll
Hopefully you won't be so bundled up next time.
Yeah, I'm in my basement too. I'm freezing. All right, guys.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to another episode of On The Porch with Front Porch Music. We're so lucky to be able to chat with artists and make episodes like this one. If you like the podcast, remember to rate and review us, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. It's the easiest way to support the show. Remember to check out frontporchmusic.ca to keep up with new music releases, exclusive artist interviews, and more. We'll catch you again on The Porch in a couple of weeks. On The Porch is hosted by Logan Miller and Jenna Weiser, and produced and edited by Jason Saunders. That's me. Our theme song was written, produced, and performed by Owen Wrigley.